Master coach and human behavior specialist Emma Dunwoody is back. Hi, Emma.
Hey, I'm so happy to be back. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Me too. And you're actually an Australian. And so last time we were talking about the difference in our time zones, but you're actually here in the States. You're in Texas right now. You said it's hot.
It's hot. And I mean, I'm used to the heat. It's great because it's winter back at home, but
Right.
yeah, it's properly hot here in Austin, far
Oh
out.
gosh. Yeah, it's gotten that way in Nashville too. Well, we were just talking before the podcast because you have been on the podcast before, like I said, and we really kind of broke down the basics of human design. And for anyone who hasn't listened to that podcast, I highly suggest you listen to that one first because Emma does a really great breakdown of the very basic things of starting human design. But there's so many layers to this. And we talk about all the different healing modalities or ways to find your purpose, get to know yourself in this world. Human design has become one of my favorites, but it's still kind of hard for me to read my chart or understand. And so you and I are going to dive a little bit deeper into some of those pieces of it. But I was asking you, what is the difference actually between human design and gene keys? Because I know they work together a lot, but I'm not
Mhm.
fully understanding what the difference is.
Yeah, so it's such a great question because I feel like a lot of people are really confused. I was really confused for the longest time because there wasn't really like they seem to be similar, but no one really talked about the fact that, did they plug in? Were they part of the same thing? Were they just happenstance? So their human design was the guy who channeled the information and then created human design. When he was launching human design in the UK, he had this guy, Richard Rudd,
Yeah.
go who was already in the UK to teach human design over there. Now, Richard Rudd worked with human design for a number of years, but then he started to kind of build this relationship and start to get these downloads around the gates. So he actually, although he and Ra got along really well, which by all reports is very odd,
Mm.
and he then kind of went off and did the gene keys. So the gene keys, they are actually representative of what we call the gates in human design, and
Okay.
they all come back to the I Ching and the hexagrams of the I Ching. So they all have these similar themes. So the numbers that you see in your chart, when you're looking at a human design chart, they are gates, and when you're looking at Gene Keys profile,
Mhm.
then that's the Gene Keys, and they're called spheres. Now there are similarities because each, whether it's a hexagram, a gate, or a gene key, they have a similar theme. Now, the difference is that when we look at the gene keys, this is all information that over, an extended period of time, Richard Rudd has kind of downloaded this information. The gene keys is very poetic. Often when you come to the gene keys, you're a bit like, wow, just feels like word salad. Like I don't get it,
Yes. Yes.
right? But for me, I think that they all work so beautifully together. And I think the best description I've heard of it was actually Richard Rudd, the creator of the Gene Keys, and my mentor here in Australia, Kim Gould. They were talking about it. And it's like human design is the masculine, the structure, the skeleton, the bones. And then the gene keys, when they work beautifully together, they're actually like the muscles, the skin, the movement. And the gene keys, they're written by a poet. So they're softer and sort of magical. Whereas human design is sort of, it was birthed in the world by a very kind of masculine man. So the other thing that I love about the gene keys and why I use them so much is that every gene key has this journey from the shadow to the gift to the Siddhic state. And the Siddhi is the enlightened state.
Right.
So, as a behavioral coach, the reason I love it so much is because the thing that I thought was limiting with human design is that sometimes it can just be quite two dimensional. Like if you have
Mhm.
this gate, then that's the energy. Whereas the gene keys is like, well, if you have this gene key, this is the shadow or the fear expression. This is the gift, which is the, you know, love expression, if you like. And then there's even the enlightened expression that's going to sort of duck in and out when you're in alignment. So it really gives you this movement and this view of potential because I love that. I'd
Me
much
too.
rather know what my potential
Yeah.
is Like, yeah, I want to know, okay, yep, that's totally my shadow. But when I see my shadow, I want to kind of be in this place where it's like, okay, that's an indicator. I'm in my mind, I'm
Right.
in fear, something needs healing, but what's the potential I can move towards? So I love the journey of the gene keys.
Mm.
And again, human design is something that people kind of throw themselves at. And it's kind of like this, it's experimentation, it's messy. Whereas I think the gene keys is it's more graceful. You contemplate it over time. But yeah, I love them. I think they're absolutely perfect for each other.
So you actually use both
I
in your
use
work.
both.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. And for listeners, I mean, we talked about this in the first podcast, but human design really kind of incorporates astrology, your birthday, your birth time, all of the other things. We talk about astrology a lot on this podcast. So my listeners are very familiar with that. And we also talk about Enneagram and all those things. And so this is a different modality and it feels a lot more complex. But for me, working with it or learning about it, which I still obviously am, is very helpful in a different way. Like
Mm,
Enneagram almost tells me who I am and it's static, whereas like human design and Gene Keys feels like my soul's journey a little bit more and
yeah.
how I can evolve and where I want to go. Those
Mm.
kind of things. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense because I think one of the big things with any of the behavioral personality profiles is that we actually come to the results through our mind, meaning we're answering questions about what is true for us in the moment and who we think we are. We
Mm,
don't actually know who we are. 95% of our behavior is unconscious, right?
right.
So we're actually answering questions from this snapshot in time that is really representing our already kind of cognitive bias, our gaps, all of that sort of stuff. And the thing with human design is it's the energetic blueprint that sits underneath. So it'll express these things, but what it kind of shows you is like, oh, wow, when I'm in my shadow, it's going to show up like this, like, um, I don't know, in fact, let's take one of yours. I'm just going to quickly look
Okay.
at your chart. For example, your personality sun, right? In human design, we're going to talk about this as this is like the gate of new beginnings. This is
Okay.
all about starting afresh. It's kind of like the lightning bolt or the pulse of energy or the fuel that gets something started. But when we actually look at this in the gene keys, there's so much more to it because in the shadow, it's immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
So, what it says in the shadow of the 53 is when we are immature, we are acting from the mind and from fear. And
Mm,
there's this beautiful metaphor in the gene keys that talks about arrows and firing like the 53 is is firing a new arrow out into the universe. And when we fire that arrow, that new beginning from fear or from immaturity, it's like firing bent arrows. It's never going to get to the destination that you want to go to. The gift of the 53 is called expansion.
okay.
So when you fire an arrow, so that arrow might be, you're a generator. Maybe
Yeah.
you've had some inspiration, something shows up in your external reality. Your cycle says, yes. And you're like, right, I'm on this new road. And you're like, I'm starting this from love, not because I have to, not because I should, not because I think it's the right thing to do, but because it lights me up. It feels aligned. I don't know how it's going to go, but it feels really good. Now, the 53 in its gift, like literally has this superpower of expansion. Like everyone
Mm,
who I know that has the 53 has, this great power to expand a business, expand a movement, expand anything. It's a very beautiful energy. And in its acidic state is superabundance. So it's literally, it almost becomes unstoppable and you're no longer expanding for expanding's sake. It's more like superabundance is more about almost being connected to everything, right?
okay.
So when we look at the gene keys, you could just say, oh my God, I'm starting all these things from fear, and
Mm,
straight away you can nip it in the bud. You can literally go, okay, right. I have to come back to strategy and authority. I have to come back to that place where I'm firing my arrows or the things that I'm beginning in my life. They have to come from my heart, from my soul, from love. Because if they don't, I'm just going to be chasing my tail or I'm going to end up creating something I don't want to create. And it could be big and amazing and everyone else loves it, but I'm not going to love it because it's coming from fear. So That's why the Gene Keys, I think, is so powerful because they're always giving us effectively the story arc of the
Yeah.
potential that lies within us.
Yeah, I mean, and what you just described is completely how my life always works.
I
And
love
it's
it.
yeah, it's interesting because you don't think that your mind would necessarily be leading you with fear, but it is. And we just talked about this on the podcast last week, actually, about really touching into your body with every decision you make. Like, what do you feel content, calm, the knowing versus what are you thinking through? Because often that is fear. And now you just validated that really is fear for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
really is like, I mean, human design is all about, getting out of the head and into the body.
Hmm.
And human design is not alone. There are so many modalities now that are really teaching us that everything from our biofeedback, our energetic body, our emotional body, there's so much information that is constantly being sent to us and we're just missing it because
Yeah.
we're in our head,
Right.
or and in human design, we're really talking about this new paradigm. It's also this thing we're calling, well, apparently there's this mutation of the solar plexus happening. To simplify that down, what that means is that we are moving from making decisions with the mind. We are moving from thinking doers to being receivers, to
Mm.
being very energetic, as opposed to trying to think our way to things. And I really feel like, again, this mutation, what it's telling us is that up until now, we've been at the mercy of our emotions. And
Mhm.
when we allow our emotions to be reactionary and we react to other people's emotions, I mean, look at what's going on in this country at the moment. It's
Yeah.
freaking crazy. And what's actually happening is all of this, not taking responsibility for our emotions, we're either repressing them or we're indulging in them. What's actually happening is these emotions that mean nothing are so big that we're missing the subtle energies that are going on in our
Mm.
body, the actual guidance. For you, whenever, let's say, you get stuck in any big emotions, being a non emotional person, like it's not even yours to be dealing with in the first place, but it's stopping you from hearing your sacral and your spleen, which are a little more subtle, but they're actually the ones or the parts of you that know the truth for you.
Yeah.
So this is this time where we have to learn to get to really connect to these subtle energies that are constantly talking to us, that have our own good and our highest good in mind.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that feels like a positive shift. I'm
Yeah,
very,
it is.
very open and welcoming to that energy because, as you said, it's been crazy here. I would love to know, on a side note, after the podcast, what you think about that from another country. But yeah. But in speaking of immaturity, there's just a lot of that on display at all times, and so it's really interesting to think about us as a whole moving from the mind to the body. I think that could only be good in my head. That just
I agree.
feels, yeah. Okay, so we talked about what we were going to dissect with human design because like I said, we did do the basics and the foundation stuff in the last podcast. And again, if you guys have not listened to that, just put in Velvet's Edge, Emma Dunwoody, and it's very, very informative, very helpful. We gave a great foundation, or you did. I just listened. But today you were going to take us a little deeper. And so the first thing we mentioned was the Incarnation Cross. And when you asked me to send you my stuff, I was reading over that part, and it literally is a foreign language to me. So
Yeah.
this is stuff that I don't know about, even though I have been working somewhat with human design. So can you help us understand that part of human design?
Yeah, sure. So our incarnation cross, it was first described by Ra as the job description of our aura.
Okay.
And, that sounds kind of a little bit out there. What does that actually mean? Well, effectively, the bubble of energy that you go everywhere in your life in is actually doing a lot of your life's work without you even realizing. You're completely unconscious to it. Now, from a human design perspective, you're going to look at your chart. You're going to look at the top two numbers on the right. So the top one is number one, the second one is number two, then over to the left, the third number of your cross is at the top on the left, and then the second on the left. Now, those four gates come together and to create your incarnation cross. And what is actually going on is literally in every single moment, your higher self, your spirit, your heart, your energetic body, it knows what you need, right?
Mhm.
So what we actually are doing all the time is we're calling in different incarnation crosses all the time because it's like my body needs this energy. I
Okay.
need this to move toward whatever I'm moving towards. I have this intention to create something, or I'm feeling stuck, or whatever it is. So we're always energetically and completely unconsciously calling in and being attracted to others because of our incarnation cross.
Mm.
And it sounds complicated, but I'll make it really simple because this is one of my favorite stories of it. Is that so? For example, when my first son was born, he is a cross of the sleeping phoenix. And the job of a cross of the sleeping phoenix energetically is to help people rise from the ashes.
Mm.
And literally, when he was born, was when I was deep in my mental health stuff. And as he was born, I was like literally rising from the ashes. That's when I started to, you know, really started to get ahead with my mental health and retrain my brain and all of these things. So he didn't have to do anything. It was literally his incarnation cross, his energy that helped me to begin and initiate the rising from the ashes. Then my second son, when he was born, I remember being pregnant with him and sitting in a brainstorming, and we were trying to make Nutella sound healthy. And I'm like, I can't do
It's
this
just not.
anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just not. There's nothing you can do there. I'm out. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I just can't do this. It goes against everything I believe in. But I didn't have any idea what I would do. And then once he was born, 3 months later, I actually started my first business. Now, his incarnation cross is called the Cross of the Sphinx, and it's all about changing direction.
Oh my
So
God.
with him, he bought the energy I needed to change direction. So this is happening all the
Mhm.
time. Like, I actually had a day last week where I interviewed 3 crosses of the Sphinx and then literally got interviewed by one the other day. And I've been going through some really, really challenging stuff. And the moment I see these Sphinxes keep showing up, I'm like, excellent. The turn is here.
It's
The shift is
coming.
here.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I wouldn't be calling in that energy.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it's so, so, so cool. And a friend of
Yeah.
mine, and I've got to give a friend of mine a plug because she's written a brilliant book on Incarnation Cross. Her name's Brynja Magnuson.
Okay.
And she actually has on every incarnation cross in her book, she has a dinner party question. And it's really cool because we do this a lot on retreat, where you literally just pull someone's name out of a hat.
Yeah.
Then that person asks you whatever their cross's question is. And it's amazing because they're like, I cannot believe that I'm asking this question because this is exactly what I'm going through
It's
right
always
now.
what they need. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like,
Wow.
for example, obviously I know my cross question off the top of my head. So mine is, what does your community need? So
Mhm.
this is like, that's what your energy is pulling in right now, because otherwise we wouldn't have booked it right here, right now on this date. Like
Yeah.
something in you is calling in, what does your community need? And my energy is here to help you find the structure and the strategy and and build the community.
Oh, that just gave me chills. Okay. That makes total sense, by the way. Yes.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So good. So yeah, so our incarnation cross is fascinating. It's really fascinating. Now, given that we've spoken about the gene keys, the gene keys also overlap with these same gates.
Okay.
Um, but in the gene keys, it's called your activation sequence. And it's basically your life's work, your evolution, which is this turbine that drives your life's work. In there is also the greatest challenge you have, the most consistent challenge that will show up in your life all the time. Then you have your radiance, and this is how you thrive and um, your wellness, um, yeah, like how you really shine.
Mhm.
And then you have your purpose, which is your inner fulfillment, not the purpose you're doing out in the world. So it's the same 4 gates, but they're just the gene keys. But again, I love this part of the chart because it's kind of like a really great macro place to start when you're talking about your purpose, because these really are the big energies in your design that are going to play out the most consistently.
Okay. So that's maybe I'm missing this, but I just want to clarify a little bit. when you say Incarnation Cross and Human Design, and then the parts you just described with the gene keys, those 4 numbers are connected to the Incarnation Cross and Human Design?
Exactly.
Okay, just making
Exactly. So they're
okay.
the 4 we call them 4 gates of your Incarnation Cross in Human Design. And then those same gates are your activation sequence in the gene keys. So we're always talking about the same 4 numbers, if you like,
Mhm.
and line numbers. It's just that they're interpreted a little bit differently.
So if it's like in the example of your kids, they obviously come with that gift for you and you called them in specifically because of that wiring within them. But so this is part of a massive part of our purpose, I would say, in life, right? Is what
Mhm.
we're bringing energetically to others.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. But one of the big challenges that Ra that channeled all the information in. One of the challenges he foresaw, and actually it nearly stopped him from ever sharing Incarnation Cross at all, was that we would get, like our minds would get attached to our Incarnation Cross, that we have to do something, that we have to refine something, that
Right.
we have to build something. And that's where we have to be very careful with it, that we don't go down that path. This isn't something you do, it's something you be. It's happening all the
Mhm.
time. Now, if there's any work to be done on your Incarnation Cross, then it's really just about identifying the shadows, which again, the gene keys will help you with. Um, then you can integrate them. And it just means that you're going to be shining brighter in your natural gifts, in your natural talents, because you've integrated the shadows. So you're going to live more in the gift expression. So when you're doing that, literally the energy you're putting out in the world is just more high frequency, high consciousness.
Okay. That makes sense to me. That's really interesting. Now I wanna dive into mine. I'll have to really put that in now. Okay, so then we talked about centers,
Yeah.
defined or undefined. I have
Yeah.
no
So
clue
your
what this means.
centers, this is great. I love it because I don't think a lot of people don't actually talk about centers, which is,
Yeah.
in my opinion, ridiculous because
Okay.
like, they're actually right in the fundamentals of our design because what you have colored in, which is what we call defined. So if you're looking at your chart
Mhm.
and you see all these shapes, they're our centers. Now they're connected to the Hindu chakra system, but we actually, in human design, they've split out. So we actually have 9 instead of the standard 7.
Okay.
So, and that was actually a mutation that took place, I believe, in like 1840 or something like that, apparently. There's actually this guy who I've heard interviewed once that can see auras and he can see chakras. And he actually couldn't work out why he was seeing 9 chakras. And then he came across human design and was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is crazy. Um, so these energy centers are also what dictate your type. So depending on what centers are defined and how those centers are connected, this actually dictates your type. Now, the truth is that, and I mean, this is controversial, but it's true, is that type wasn't actually part of the initial download. And that's controversial because everyone teaches type, type, type all the
Yeah,
time.
that's the main thing people talk about.
And the truth is that the type was something that Ra created later to make it easier to teach,
Okay.
because he needed the macro group to kind of put people
Mhm.
in. And then he pulled similarities together, and then that's how the types kind of kicked off. So, one of the things that when you work with human design, like I do enough, you start to hear people say, I'm a projector, but what they're saying that doesn't resonate.
Mhm.
And when you start to hear that, it means that the standard definition that we talk about through type is just different to whatever this person has defined. So, for example, when we look at, let's say, a projector, but even I'm going to say, like even to a degree, your design, right? Yes, you've got 3 motors defined, and you've got the spleen, but you're undefined with the will center, the G center, the throat, the head, and the ajna. So, as a generator, you're told like you're the Energizer Bunny. You have all this energy in the world, and you can do all of this and do all of that, and it's consistent and it's always there, and blah blah blah. Well, that's not actually true.
I never feel like that.
Exactly. And you don't feel like that because you only have 4 centers defined. So
Okay.
yes, 3 of them are motors, which means you have 3. So when there is something for you to respond to, you have the energy to back it up.
Yeah.
But half the time, like half of your centers are taking in, amplifying, and reflecting back everybody else, other people's energy. So you're processing everybody else's energy through these
Mhm.
undefined centers, which is what everyone talks about is why projectors are so tired or reflectors are so tired because they have to deal with everybody else's energy. So what happens is that we think, 'cause I'm the same, I'm a manifesting generator, but I'm literally a human. Like when I'm on, I am on
Yeah.
and I can go for hours and yep.
Yes.
But when I'm not, I am out. And
Yeah.
it's because I don't have a defined root center. I've only got 4 defined centers myself. So that processing everybody else's energy is really, really exhausting. So
Mhm.
once we start to understand the centers, we also understand at the core of what we call the not self. So where our most significant conditioning will lie. So for you, it's going to be around your thinking, your mental capacity, the way you ask questions, the way you come up with answers. There's going to be this fear that you don't know enough. There's potentially this fear that you can't get clarity. There's this fear that you can't, like, I just can't get clear on it, or I don't know. Like people say, ask questions, and you're like, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
Um, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, especially the clarity, 'cause
Yeah.
and the wanting to know more, 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 like, learning. I mean, that's probably why I started this podcast. I'm interviewing people like you, learning every time
Mm,
I interview somebody. So
mm,
and I have such a drive for that. Like, people sometimes are like, "Why are you so obsessed with that?" But
yeah.
you just explained it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Okay.
big thing, like, so for you with your energy, right? And especially having an undefined head and ajna. So number one, you can let yourself off the hook for ever being certain because you're not
Okay.
designed to be certain. You're
Okay.
not designed to have mental certainty. You're also not designed to think with great clarity
Mm.
because the way you're designed is you literally have access to all the thinkers in your aura. So when you are with people, you're literally like they are either dropping off, or you're receiving, attracting, you are literally being able to think like everybody else around you and in the room.
Mhm.
You can kind of you're an open channel. And again, with the undefined head and ajna, like if anyone asks you to memorize a script or read off points or whatever, you're like, I can't because then
Mhm.
I forget what I meant to talk about.
Mhm.
But if someone just puts you in front of a microphone and says, talk about this thing, you're like, yeah, I can talk about it for days.
If I
Because,
have, like, a heart connection to it, like,
yeah,
if I feel connected to it, I could go on and on and on, and I'm very clear. But you're so right when it comes to the mental piece of it, a lot of times I am blocked.
mhm.
That is so
and it's
interesting. Okay.
and it's not because you're blocked, it's just not your superpower.
Okay.
So you when it comes to your thinking, you think outside the square, you can think in all sorts of directions, but you're more of a channel than a thinker.
Mm.
So whenever you want to get like mental clarity on something, you need to get
Yeah.
it out of your head, into onto a piece of paper, into a journal,
Okay.
into like a slide deck,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like
Yeah.
you got to get it out because that's where
Yes.
you'll find the clarity.
Because 'Cause it'll just keep swirling if I keep it in
Yeah,
my head. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it feels
because
like.
there's so people who are defined in the head and the ajna, they literally think in processes. So
Mhm.
they can sit in a room with a bunch of people talking about moving towards a goal. They've not only moved towards the goal, but they understand every step that every single person in the room has to take to get there. They're all
Mhm.
wondering why people don't understand, don't see it the way they see it. And it's because we're all still in the melting pot, like bringing all these things together where they're building a very logical structure in their mind. So they think in these pathways. So yeah, and nothing is right, wrong, good, or bad. It's
Yeah, it's
just
just
the
everybody's
difference.
different.
Yeah.
Well, and a perfect example of that is I really struggle to I need brainstorming, like, I thrive off of getting other people's ideas, but I really struggle in a brainstorming session, like, where everyone's sitting at a table doing it together. I really struggle, and I can never think clearly
Yeah.
or get to what I would want to do, like, my solution. I have to almost take their thoughts, go away on my own, sit with it, process, and do all the things, and I'm sure it's because I'm absorbing so much of.
So you've nailed it. And there's
Yeah,
2 reasons for that. Number 1, you're an emotional authority.
yeah,
So emotional authorities always need time for everything.
Oh,
you know?
okay.
So even if you did have mental clarity, you'd still be like, yeah, I still need time. I just
Okay.
need time. But what you're talking about is you're sitting in a room with a bunch of people that have lots of ideas, and potentially there's a number of people who have mental definition. Of course, you can't get clarity because it's literally like it's banging in and out, like in and
I
out
mean,
and
it's like
in
I'm not
and
even there almost. Like my
yeah,
my body is there, but my brain is so overloaded in
yeah,
those moments.
yeah. And that's
Okay.
exactly how you're designed.
Well, that makes it this is what's so great about things like this is because I always looked at that as such a failure of mine in a
Yep.
way of, just, well, why can't I do that? I see these other people doing it and it made me think, "Oh, maybe I'm not that creative or maybe I'm whatever." But it's literally my brain would shut down and you just this is
Yeah.
why. And this is why these kind of things are great to learn about yourselves because there's no shame in that. It's just your
Mm-mm.
wiring.
Exactly. I love that. I love that it really, all of this gives you full permission, like full
Mhm.
permission just to be you, like,
Yeah, exactly.
because there's no perfect design. It's
No.
like when someone says, oh, what's the right relationship for my design? And I'm always quick to say, there is no such thing, like the perfect design to your design is the one that your strategy and authority guides you to, not the one that
Mhm.
some expert tells you,
Right.
oh, well, that goes well with this. Like, that's the whole point of human design is it's an experiment, it's a journey, you're being guided. And if you learn to listen to your strategy and authority, you get to know how your energetic body works, then you don't need to know. You don't need to know the
Yeah.
design of anyone else because you're like, I'm just going to be put in the right place at the right time with the right people. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, your centers are huge.
Mhm.
And, like, for example, in yours as well, you have an undefined G center and you also have an undefined will center. So the G center, anyone who has an undefined G center, well, if you do have a defined G center, it's going to be, colored in, and you're someone that literally popped out having this inner feeling of direction. Like you just know, I'm going in this direction. Um, I am lovable. So
Mm.
there's these two pieces. Whereas when you've got an undefined G center, feel like you're constantly chasing your purpose. Like, is it this? 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 Like, it's so confusing. And
Yes.
then you also, with the G center and the will center, which is also called the ego and the heart center, having both of those undefined, like, one of the challenges for you is because lovability sits in the G center and self-worth sits in the will center. So these are two energies that are not consistent for you.
Mhm.
So these can be areas that you're most susceptible to conditioning,
Ye
to unresourceful beliefs, to self-judgment and criticism, because you pick up everybody else's lovability and self-worth and you think it's yours and it's
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
And so I always say, like, anyone who has these two undefined, because they're also massive players when we get into relationships, but we have these two undefined, we really want to have as best we can daily practices of supporting our lovability and our self-worth, because otherwise we're constantly doing things to get love and we're constantly trying to prove ourselves and it's just a dead end.
Yes. And, it's so funny, I lived my whole life envying those people who knew what they wanted to do with their life from the age of 5. That I say that to
Me
my friends
too.
all the time, like, God, you see those creatives who just knew and they always had this passion and there was no question in their mind they wanted to do this. I have never, ever, ever, ever had that feeling,
Hmm.
ever.
Yep,
And I
get it.
and I think people get surprised by that because there's certain areas where I've been successful, but I still will question them all the time or feel like, "Is this it?" That thing you said.
Mhm.
"Is this it? Like, is this the right way?" All of those feelings. So again, makes me feel less crazy.
Yeah, and I love it because I have a completely undefined G center, and the one thing that I love to tell people is that I now know that I'm on purpose every single day. But if
Mhm.
you ask my mind what my
Yes.
purpose is, I'm going to give you a different answer every single
Every
time.
day.
But I
Yeah.
know the feeling, and that's all
Yes.
that matters, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I know we're getting close to running out of time, so I wanna cover gates and channels as quickly as we
Yeah,
can, but
let's
just
do
to
it.
still because I feel like it's very important to what we've been talking about.
Yeah, so I feel like with gates and channels, the thing about that is that when people first come to their human design, they want to go to gates and channels super quickly.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always want to say to people is just slow down, because if you can work out your type, your signature theme and your not self theme, your strategy, your authority, your profile, and you can run that experiment, then your whole life's moving towards alignment. You're already
Mhm.
doing it. That's
Mhm.
all you really need. Then when you start to understand your centers, this is when you get the big mic drop moments of like, oh my God, I thought I was crazy. It's actually someone else's energy. So it's really
Yeah.
powerful. Now, when you get to gates and channels, they are your real nuances, like superpowers and biggest challenges.
Okay.
The channels are when you see the line in your chart, it's the
Mhm.
energy that's moving back and forward. So it's always in motion. So these are going to be really significant themes that are constantly showing up in your life when you have
Okay.
them lit up.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example with your chart. So you actually have the channel of ambition. So
Mhm.
anyone who has the channel of ambition, it means that there is a part of you that's constantly feeling this ambitious drive.
Mhm.
It's always happening. The challenge is that if the ego jumps in, if it comes from fear, the ambition is driving. I need to get money. I need money. I need to, and it comes into this unresourceful money loop. The moment this channel goes, hang on a second, my ambition is about something greater than me, and it attributes meaning, then all of a sudden they just become financial magnets because they're building something meaningful and their ambition is unstoppable. Does
Mhm.
that resonate with you at all?
100%.
Mm.
Because, that's happened to me, in fact, in certain situations, and out of fear and maybe like a scarcity mindset back in, my younger days, I would do a lot of things. And also you kind of have to at some places of your life, like
Yeah.
there's survival as well. We need a roof over our head and food on the table. But I would find myself in certain situations that would end up blowing up in my face in a way because they were guided from that place of fear. Like, it was
Yeah.
never it's never fully felt like I've never been a lazy person, I've always been very driven, but I do find now that I'm observing where it can't just be drive to have drive, like, it can't be driven just to be driven, it has to be very guided and, like, heart connected for me if it's going to have the long-standing run in my life.
Mm. I love that. And that's exactly what this channel is all about. So
Okay.
this is an energy that's always working in you.
Yeah.
You've also got the 3457, which is all about it's like power to intuition. So it's really like your intuition is plugged into the most powerful gate in the design. So
Mm.
your intuition is something that's incredibly powerful within you. And it's
Mhm.
super important that, again, it's on all the time. So learning to listen to the subtle energy of the spleen, of the intuition, of the instinct, um, because it's going to be a contributor to all the other things that are going. Because obviously you're an emotional authority, and you also have a defined sacral, and you've got this spleen that's connected to the 34. So there's so much power in your intuition and all your authority. Does that resonate?
It does. How do you know, as because you were talking about the undefined pieces earlier and, like, when I'm around people absorbing so much. So, like, if I find with my intuition, I do have to get quiet with myself, and I do kind of have to be not around others often to fully tap into what is mine. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? So is that like,
So
how do
I
you
love this question, right? So
Yeah.
technically, when you build the muscle of knowing what your energy is and what someone else's energy is, you will be able to hear your intuition
Mhm.
literally in Times Square on the busiest day of the
Okay.
year.
That is
Like,
starting to happen. Like, I love that you said when you define your energy versus others, there
yeah.
is something in my body that's starting to recognize that.
And that's the noise for you. When it comes to
Yeah.
intuition, the noise for you is when you think other people's energy is yours.
Yes.
And
Okay.
you're like, "Oh, it's like you're letting it in. You're letting it
Mhm.
in your aura."
Mhm.
So, one of the things that's super cool is once you understand your undefined centers and you literally practice body scanning. So, you
Mhm.
body scan on your own and then just notice whenever people come in and out of your aura, how different you feel. And you can experiment with one center at a time. And all of a sudden, like let's say you did this with your will center, all of a sudden you're feeling low self worth. Wow, this is the person that's with me. This is not me.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So all of a sudden you start to realize, like, I know how I feel in my aura on my own,
Yes.
and that it changes as soon as someone else comes into my aura. This is not me, this is them. I'm feeling their energy. It's like one of my classics is because I've got undefined head and ajna as well.
Uh-huh.
So I can sit on a plane and I'm fine with flying. I have no fear, no nothing. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing images of the plane like burst into flames, or I'm hearing all of this, like, oh
Yes.
my God. And I'm like, it used to freak me out
Well,
because I'm
right.
like,
Why
I'm
did it
just
pop in your
fine.
head?
Yeah,
Yes.
right. But then now I know it's just everybody else's mental energy around me. It's not my mental energy. So I'll ground into my own energy,
Yes.
and my own energy, like my sacral's like, we're sweet. We are
Yeah.
sweet. Nothing to worry
Yeah.
about. So that's the big trick with you really amping up your um, intuition, because it's already super powerful.
Mhm.
It's just going to be discerning your energy to other people's energy. And once you can let other people's energy flow through you, you won't even know it's there.
Okay. So that's the channels. What did you say about the gates? What were the
So the
main?
gates, yeah, the gates are all the numbers that you're going to see on your
Okay.
chart, and they're the ones that have all the planets. And depending on what planet they fall in, there's a theme. So if each gate is our teacher, because each
Mhm.
gate has a specific lesson to teach us, but superpower and shadow, then depending on what planet it's in on the side of your chart, that's the classroom.
Okay.
So you're going into a bunch of different classrooms to learn about this particular energy. So what that might look like is, for example, I'll use my chart because I know it off the top of my head. A large part of what brings me, how I shine in the world, my radiance, my health, my vitality, is also one of the great lessons I'm learning in this lifetime, because it turns up in my design sun and my design north node. So it turns up a couple of times because I've got to learn it from different directions.
Mhm.
So when we start to play with our gates, then we really start to see our patterns, the story of our
Mhm.
life effectively, our purpose, our superpowers, our challenges, everything. It's like that. This is the micro of our design.
Interesting. I feel like this is one of those things like you'll never ever learn everything you can learn about human design. It's a
I agree.
constantly evolving situation, or there's always somewhere deeper you can go with it. So you do have a podcast as well, the Human Design Podcast with Emma Dunwoody. I will put the link of that in the description of this podcast. But you cover all the things about human design and any sort of conversation that could be coming up about that. So if you guys have more questions about this, that is a great resource. You also now have a book. So can you tell
So
us a little bit about the book?
yeah, so the big thing about the book really, and again, I followed my strategy and authority. It was the most serendipitous experience of my life. It was could not have been easier. And the book itself, I have this mission. I want to take human design mainstream. And what that means is it has to be easy. It has to be easy
Yeah.
and simple for people to integrate into their life every day. So again, I'm a 3-5 profile, so it makes perfect sense that I've created a book that has simplified down this really complicated knowledge and modality into a
Mhm.
form that you can just, it's like if you just get the book, download your design, you can get it on our website. Then you can run every experiment with all the macro of your design and integrate it into your everyday life and start to watch as your life just becomes more and more aligned. So, yeah, it was my mission that I wanted something that was accessible, not just for those that are already seeking,
Yeah.
but for those that are like curious and maybe not on their journey, like so many of us are in our worlds.
Right.
So yeah, it's this beautiful little buddy that you can experiment with and integrate your design.
And the book is called Human Design Made Simple, which is just like, yes, we need that because, like I said, it can look a little bit like a foreign language when you first start getting into it. So don't be intimidated. Get the book, get your chart, and have a little coffee and sit down and,
Exactly.
and learn about it. Emma, thank you so much. I love having you on. You are such a fun guest for me. So thank you so much for being here. I will put all of Emma's contact info in the description of this podcast so you guys can go keep up with her journey, listen to the podcast, and go get the book.
Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you guys for listening.